Well, I know what soundtrack I'm listening to for the rest of the summer. So, Baby Driver is directed by Edgar Wright, who is one of my favourite directors working in film at the moment. I wonder why. I wonder why that is. Why could that be? The question is, does it live up to the hype that everyone's been surrounding this film with? Is it any good? Let's get into it. So I'd like to start off by saying that I have always been a fan of Edgar Wright's work. I started watching Spaced when it came out and I thought it was one of the most hilarious TV shows I've ever seen. Since then, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, all fantastic films. Scott Pilgrim, one of my favourite films of all time. It's up there, in amongst, dotted around in my top 10 list. It changes places sometimes, but it's almost always up there in my top 10. And the reason that it's always there is because I love Edgar Wright's eye for creativity. He has this distinct style that when you're watching it, you get the feeling that you're watching one of his films, and it's all down to the pacing, it's all down to the editing, it's all down to the humour that he uses, and Baby Driver has that in spades. It is all over this film that this is definitely an Edgar Wright film. There is no mistaking that. So the idea is that Baby is a getaway driver for Kevin Spacey, and he is the best in the business, and he always listens to music while he's doing it because he has tinnitus, and he has this ringing in his ears, and he uses music to constantly drown that out so he can think. As such, his life is set to a soundtrack, and he's the greatest getaway driver there is. And it's not just that he has one car that he uses that is his car to get away in. No, he can drive any car as a getaway car. In fact, there are scenes in this film that he switches from car to confuse people to get away from cops. And it's not necessarily that he's a bad guy, it's that he's a good character. He is a good-natured character. He is a good, soulful character that has been put into a bad situation and is making the most out of it. It's handled well in the explanation as to why he's there. It's handled well in the explanation as to his situation with his hearing and how he can read lips. It's handled well in the execution of him finding someone he really loves and cares about in Lily James, that the film then begins to centre around. And he's put into a situation where that is contested and that's brought into play. And all of it just kind of comes together naturally in a way that doesn't feel forced. It feels like it flows really well. And that is down to Edgar Wright in a big way. Now, it would be remiss of me to talk about an Edgar Wright film and not mention the editing. There is so much going on in the editing that you notice when you're watching the film, and you think about afterwards, and you go, do you know what? That was something that really added to the originality of the film. So everything is set to this beat of what Baby is listening to at that point in the film. In particular, the gunfight scenes, because everything seems to have a rhythm and a beat about it. And that beat is cut to the music. It's very much like the pub scene in Shaun of the Dead, where they're beating the guy with pool cues to Queen. And it's not just the action scenes either, it's other bits that are set to the music really well. There's a long opening shot that is one solid camera, again like in Shaun of the Dead, where it tracks him down the street as he goes to get something and then comes back to the building, all set to one track of music. And we have all been that guy. It's such a relatable thing to have in a film, that you're walking down the street with your earphones in and your soundtrack on, and it's your soundtrack, and everything else seems to move to that soundtrack. And it's just such a relatable thing to be able to go, yeah, I've been that guy. I completely understand what he's doing right now. It's not weird at all. And just like with Scott Pilgrim, the soundtrack features really heavily at the forefront of this film. Everything is set to music in this film. Every other scene has its own music and soundtrack, and it doesn't feel forced at all. It's like it's naturally part of the film. Guys, at the end of the day, I can't really tell you more about the film because that would be into spoiler territory, but I think everything that you need to know about the film now is just how great and well edited and well formatted this film is. So as such, Baby Driver gets 4.5 stars from me. This is probably one of the cleverest films I've seen this year. It's probably one of the most well edited films I've seen this year, for definite. Baby Driver has originality, it's got a great soundtrack, it's paced really well throughout the film. There's like 1 or 2 slow moments in the film, but they're necessary for the progress of the film, and the editing in it is fantastic. So what more could you ask for? So, have you seen Baby Driver? If you have, what did you think about it? Do you agree that it's deserving of all of the hype that it's getting at the moment? Also, on top of that, sub-question, what is your favourite soundtrack or song to drive to? All comments in the comment section below. Let's talk nerdy. As always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see some more videos in the future, don't forget to hit subscribe. And until that point, I will see you next time.